The rain had just stopped in Dayton, Ohio, and rookie cop Marcus Hale was finishing a quiet night shift. He thought it would be another routine call, but when his radio crackled, a senior officer ordered him to switch off his body camera and look the other way. The order was clear and wrong. Marcus refused. He wrote the report exactly as it happened. By the next morning, the station was buzzing. His name was on a memo, accusing him of betraying his own unit. In one night, he had gone from rookie to target. Marcus had joined the Dayton Police Department with the simple dream of serving honestly. He had grown up in a working-class neighborhood where people complained about cops more than they trusted them. For Marcus, wearing the badge was a chance to prove someone could do the job the right way. He was still adjusting to the routine, paperwork, long shifts, and the steady hum of radios. As a rookie, his role was mostly observation, learning from veterans. He never expected his first major test would come so quickly, or that the cost would be so heavy. The department itself reflected the town it served. Dayton was struggling with factory closures, abandoned blocks, and rising tension. The precinct was run by seasoned officers who had their own way of doing things. To survive as a rookie, you kept quiet and followed orders. Marcus understood the culture, but he also carried a stubborn sense of right and wrong. Most nights passed without much trouble, domestic calls, traffic stops, and endless patrol. But underneath the surface, Marcus noticed how decisions were made less by law and more by unwritten rules that everyone else seemed to accept. The night of the call started like any other. A car was pulled over near an old warehouse district, and Marcus responded as backup. The senior officer, already on scene, recognized the driver and didn't want the stop recorded. The order came through Marcus's earpiece. Shut off the camera, file it as a routine warning. Marcus's hand hovered near the button, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. He kept recording. He filed the paperwork as he was trained, noting what actually happened. It seemed small at the time, just honesty, but it set off a chain reaction. The next morning, Marcus entered the precinct and felt eyes follow him. Conversations dropped when he walked past. His name was printed on a memo, pinned to the notice board, accusing him of poor judgment and endangering the unit by failing to comply with procedure. The words felt like a knife. Marcus hadn't expected praise, but he also hadn't expected betrayal so fast. He sat at his desk, trying to focus on his reports, while whispers carried through the room. Some officers stared openly, others shook their heads as if disappointed. His chest tightened, but he kept working quietly. Later that day, one of the senior officers cornered him in the hallway. The message was blunt. Rookies who didn't follow the unspoken rules didn't last long. Marcus stood frozen, not sure whether to defend himself or stay silent. The officer smirked, clapped him on the shoulder, and walked away, leaving Marcus with the weight of the threat. For the first time since joining the force, Marcus felt genuinely unsafe, not from the streets outside, but from the men inside the department. Every instinct told him to retreat, but his conscience screamed that backing down now meant losing himself. Marcus tried to speak with his immediate supervisor, hoping for clarity or support. The meeting was brief and cold. His supervisor barely looked at him, only repeating that Marcus needed to adjust if he wanted a future in the department. It was clear the higher-ups had already decided how they viewed him. Walking out of the office, Marcus realized his report had made him an outlier. What should have been routine honesty was now seen as rebellion. Alone in the locker room, he stared at his reflection, wondering if he had already ruined his career beyond repair. As days passed, Marcus noticed a shift in the way people treated him. Some officers stopped talking to him entirely, leaving awkward silence when he entered a room. Others whispered behind his back, shaking their heads. Yet a few surprised him. A patrol partner quietly nodded one night and said, "You did the right thing before quickly changing the subject. The conflicting signals were dizzying. Marcus couldn't tell who might stand with him and who might be planning his downfall. Each shift felt like walking into a test he didn't study for, and he knew failure had consequences. The department called for a meeting, supposedly to review recent procedures. Marcus sat in the back, listening as leadership glossed over the incident. No mention of his accurate report appeared in the official notes. Instead, the case was framed as routine and closed. He realized the truth was being rewritten in real time, and he was powerless to stop it. Looking around the room, Marcus caught several senior officers exchanging knowing looks. The message was clear. This was how the department protected itself. Anyone who broke the pattern would be pushed aside or silenced. The walls seemed to close in. After the meeting, Marcus checked the official system. His report had been altered. The details he submitted were gone, replaced with a sanitized version, matching the department's story. It was as if his honesty had never existed. His pulse raced as he stared at the screen, realizing he was being erased. He tried asking the records officer for an explanation, but received only a shrug and the phrase "orders from above." Marcus walked out of the office in a daze, knowing he was up against more than one person. The whole system was stacked to bury what he'd done. At home that night, Marcus replayed everything in his mind. Maybe he had made a mistake. Maybe he should have just shut off the camera and kept his mouth shut. He stared at his badge on the counter, wondering if it meant anything at all. The job was supposed to be about truth and service, but now it felt like survival and compromise. His chest ached with doubt. He thought about resigning, but quitting so soon would make him look like a coward. He wanted to believe he could handle this, but he wasn't sure anymore. Marcus's family noticed the change in him. At Sunday dinner, his mother told him to stop worrying and just do his job like everyone else. His brother warned him not to throw away a steady paycheck over principles. They loved him, but they didn't understand. Marcus nodded, pretending to agree, but inside he felt torn. Their words confirmed what the department had already implied. Staying quiet was the only way to keep going. He left the dinner table with a heavy heart, realizing he was more alone than he thought. Even at home, no one truly backed his choice. A few days later, Marcus was stopped by a local resident while on patrol. An older man thanked him quietly for how he had handled a previous call. The praise was small, but it lit a spark. Someone out there had noticed, and it reminded Marcus of why he had joined in the first place. The encounter gave him enough courage to keep going. As he walked back to his cruiser, he repeated the man's words in his head, holding onto them like armor. For the first time in weeks, he felt a flicker of strength return to him. Then came the breaking point. Marcus logged into the system and discovered his report wasn't just edited, it was gone, completely deleted. His record of the truth had been wiped out. It was as if the night never happened. His throat tightened as panic surged. If the report didn't exist, then neither did his side of the story. He realized the department wasn't just punishing him, it was erasing him. Standing alone in the office, staring at the blank file, Marcus felt something snap inside. He understood now. He was at war with his own department. Determined to push back, Marcus approached the records officer again, demanding to know what happened. The man looked nervous, but denied everything, insisting there must have been a system glitch. The lie was obvious. Marcus pressed harder, but the officer shut the drawer and turned away, signaling the conversation was over. Frustrated, Marcus stormed out. Every hallway, every desk, seemed to close ranks against him. For the first time, he realized just how deep the corruption went. It wasn't just one or two officers. It was woven into the structure itself, and it was prepared to swallow him whole. The realization hit hardest when Marcus looked at officers he once admired. Men who had been mentors in the academy, now avoided his eyes. He remembered the pride he felt when one of them pinned his badge at graduation. That pride was gone. Now, in its place was anger and disillusionment. The department he had trusted was nothing like he imagined. His stubborn moral code had made him an outsider, and now he had to decide whether to compromise or fight. The badge on his chest felt heavier than ever, like it no longer belonged to him. Marcus began quietly gathering evidence. He saved backup copies of his original report and screenshots of altered files. He noted dates, times, and names. He stored everything on a private drive away from the station. Every time he clicked save, he felt both relief and fear. Relief because he had proof. Fear because if anyone found out, he would be finished. He walked into the station each day pretending to be compliant, but inside he was building a case. It was dangerous, but it was the only way he could fight back without losing everything immediately. The retaliation came quickly. Marcus was reassigned to dangerous shifts, working late nights in high-crime areas without reliable backup. It was punishment, disguised as routine scheduling. One night, he responded to a call and realized his radio wasn't receiving properly, leaving him isolated. The thought chilled him. Was it an accident, or was someone trying to send a message? Each shift felt like a trap. His body ached from lack of rest, and his nerves were raw, but he refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing him break. The quiet war against him had turned personal. One evening, Marcus nearly paid the price. A call sent him to an abandoned house. As he entered, he sensed something was off. The backup unit never arrived, though dispatch claimed it was on the way. The air felt heavy, and every creak made his skin prickle. Though nothing happened inside, Marcus knew the setup was intentional. Someone had left him exposed. Driving back that night, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, he realized the danger wasn't hypothetical anymore. The department wasn't just trying to silence him, they were willing to put him in harm's way to end it. Shaken, Marcus thought seriously about resigning. He imagined turning in his badge, walking away from the mess, and starting over somewhere else. The thought tempted him. But deep down, he knew quitting would mean letting the department win. The injustice would remain buried, and the people responsible would keep doing it. Marcus hated the idea of living with that knowledge. He looked at his notes and evidence, reminding himself why he had started this fight. Fear pressed hard against him, but his conscience wouldn't let him back down. He chose to keep going, even if it cost everything. Soon after, a lieutenant known for being fair pulled Marcus aside. In a low voice, the lieutenant explained that the order Marcus refused was part of a cover-up involving a senior officer and a questionable arrest. Marcus's heart pounded. Finally, someone was telling him the truth. The lieutenant urged him to keep his head down and let it blow over, promising things would smooth out with time. For the first time, Marcus felt like he had an ally. He wanted to believe it, to trust that someone inside the department was looking out for him. But the illusion didn't last. Marcus noticed that every conversation he had with the lieutenant seemed to end up reaching leadership quickly. Details he never shared with anyone else came back to him in twisted ways. He realized the lieutenant wasn't protecting him at all. He was isolating him, feeding him false hope, and reporting everything back. The betrayal cut deeper than the hostility from others. Marcus had clung to the belief that at least one person was on his side. Now he understood even supposed allies were part of the system trying to crush him quietly. The realization left Marcus furious, but focused. If he couldn't trust anyone inside, he had to take matters outside. He doubled down on protecting his evidence, making sure nothing could be traced back to him directly. Each night, he checked over his files, building his case piece by piece. His fear had transformed into determination. He stopped expecting fairness from the department and started preparing for war. For the first time, Marcus wasn't reacting to their moves. He was planning his own, and he knew exactly where he would strike to finally expose the truth. Marcus made the bold move of leaking his evidence anonymously to an outside investigator. He sent the files, the altered reports, and detailed notes of what happened. Once the message was delivered, he sat in his small apartment, heart racing. It felt like jumping off a cliff without knowing if the parachute would open. Days later, news outlets started asking questions. The department scrambled to respond. The story was out, and it could no longer be buried. Marcus felt both terrified and relieved. For the first time, the balance of power had shifted, even if only slightly. The fallout was immediate. Leadership called emergency meetings. Officers whispered about reporters waiting outside the precinct. The command staff issued statements about ongoing reviews and misunderstandings. Marcus watched from the sidelines as panic spread. The same people who once ignored him were suddenly scrambling to control the damage. He knew they would try to find the source of the leak, but it no longer mattered. The truth was in the open. What started as a single refusal to turn off a camera had now grown into something the entire city was watching closely. Public scrutiny mounted, citizens demanded answers, and community groups organized protests outside the station. The department couldn't keep it contained anymore. An internal review was announced, and Marcus's name surfaced in media reports as the rookie at the center of it all. Officers who once mocked him now avoided him altogether. Some seemed afraid, others resentful. Marcus walked through the station with steady steps, knowing the tide had turned. The truth was finally forcing cracks into the walls that had been built so carefully around him. The department was no longer untouchable, and it showed. Leadership retaliated by suspending Marcus, claiming it was to ensure fairness during the review. The announcement was meant to humiliate him, but instead, it drew more attention from the press. Reporters questioned why the whistleblower was punished while senior officers remained in place. Marcus stood in front of his apartment that night, watching news vans outside. The pressure was crushing, but also protective. For the first time, the department couldn't simply bury him quietly. His suspension had turned him into a public figure, and that shielded him more than any badge ever had. The review concluded with one senior officer forced into early retirement, framed as a mutual decision. Others escaped with minor reprimands. Marcus knew it wasn't enough, but it was more than anyone expected. His own career hung in the balance. With his reputation torn apart inside the department, his future as a cop was uncertain. Yet he had won a small victory. He had forced accountability where none had existed before. It came at a cost: trust, stability, and maybe his career. But he had proven one rookie could challenge the machine, even if the machine still stood. Marcus walked past the precinct weeks later, his badge still suspended, the outcome unresolved. The building looked the same, but he knew it wasn't. His decision had left a mark, both on the department and on himself. He might never wear the uniform again, but he had stood firm when it mattered most. The cost was high, but his conscience was clear. As he turned down the street, he carried no illusions about victory, only the quiet knowledge that he had refused to be silenced. And that refusal had already changed more than he realized.